Fred, I can hardly believe you made this tent all by yourself
Oh,
without Wilbur's help.
No, all by myself. And I made this a number of years ago. Actually, it was when I was in high school. But I did it myself on a sewing machine. Anybody can learn to do it, and I want to show you how. Just used an ordinary sewing machine. It doesn't have to be an extra heavy-duty job. What I bought was some water-repellent 6-ounce cotton. And you can get this from tent makers a number of places. And I had an article that showed me how to do it, and I just went ahead and tried it. It's an easy-to-make lean-to tent. It's not really a fully enclosed tent, but it...
Your apron doesn't match your outfit.
Well, I had to jazz this up a little bit. There's the article that I read, and this comes from a Sports Afield magazine back in June of 1961. That's where the pattern was written up. You can see the shape of that tent. It doesn't look like a normal tent, and it actually isn't. But I'm going to show you how it sets up in just a few minutes. Of course, when you make your own tent, you have to make your own tent stakes, too. That's an important thing. It's a lot easier to make those things at home and put them in with the tent than it is to make them when you're out in the woods. Also, take along plenty of rope. Roll it up, and there you have a lightweight lean-to tent. Put that in the backpack. Also, if you're going to go camping overnight, you probably need a good ice chest for some refrigeration. Here's a little tip. Freeze water in milk cartons at home, and your food will stay cool. And the great thing about it is that as the ice melts, it'll stay right in the carton. It won't, drain all over your ice chest. And then when you arrive in the woods, number one priority is selecting a campsite. You want it away from swamps and wet areas. You don't want it under treacherous limbs at least, but you might want to use a limb for this type of tent, this lean-to. You can stretch a rope between two trees, but with this lean-to, it's better to put a ridgepole between two trees and about 5-6 feet off the ground. Now, this is the backbone of the Whelen Lean-to. It's called the Whelen Lean-to because Colonel Townsend Whelen designed it back in the 1920s. Now, with your homemade tent stakes, you can set up in a jiffy. And you'll want to flip the canopy back. See the canopy hanging down there on the lean-to? Flip that back, hang a stick right on those little tape tabs there that you've sewn in there, and you can use that to hang wet socks on, your washcloth. Now, for a ground cloth, you don't have to go to a lot of great expense either. I've always used old shower curtains. A lot of people throw them away, but they make great ground cloths. And an air mattress is one way to go. You could also go for a foam pad. Well, look at that kitty. She looks young, doesn't he? Now, one thing on air mattresses, a lot of people blow them up too tight. That's fully inflated. You don't want to blow up an air mattress like that because it'll be almost like sleeping on hard ground. So let a little air out. You'll sink down just a bit. Okay, I know what you're wondering. I know. How can you camp in an open tent like that in the summer in Michigan where we have mosquitoes?
You can't.
Well, yeah, you can with great discomfort, or you can do something about it. You can take, of course, mosquito repellent. You can slap them, you can put repellent on, but Colonel Townsend Whelen designed this tent with the reality in mind that there are bugs, so there's some little tape tabs inside that are sewn to the roof of the tent. You tie what is called a mosquito bar. A mosquito bar is like a little pup tent, except it's made out of mosquito netting, and that hangs right inside the lean-to. Another thing you notice about the lean-to, the sides actually come out. They don't go straight down under the ridgepole. They're splayed out forward, and that helps keep the rain off. Now, for a fire, especially in the fall, a fire is essential to keep this tent warm. There's no way to retain heat in it, so you're going to want a fire nearby. You want to clear out an area maybe 8-10 feet in diameter. Now, here's an idea that's especially useful with this. I'm using an old piece of metal there that I found, a makeshift piece of metal to reflect the heat of the fire back into the tent. I've also done it successfully with some logs just stacked up, green aspen logs. And of course, milk cartons are a great way to start a fire. They have the wax on them and they start right away.
You can use the milk carton after your ice is melted.
Right, after your ice is melted. It makes I'm sure if Daniel Boone would have had milk cartons available, he would have used those to start fires. All you need is a small fire, if you build it right, to cook on and to reflect heat into the tent. Now, also, if you have a fire going in front of your tent, the smoke is going to keep the insects away. There's another advantage of that reflector that goes behind the tent, or the fire, and it'll cause the smoke to go straight up. Now, here's a little tip. Before you cook over a fire, you might want to coat the bottom of your pan with soap. And you can cook on it, and it'll be turned black from the soot. Well, there we save some dishwashing. Just eat your food right off the stick. But it's surprising that the black soot comes right off the bottom of the pan when you put soap on beforehand. And there we are. That's the Townsend Whelen Lean-to. A very inexpensive tent, an awful lot of fun to camp in. I've spent many enjoyable evenings in there, looking at the sunset. As the sun goes down, you can really have an enjoyable time. A different way to camp, more rustic, roughing it. By the way, here's the mosquito bar. Mm-hmm. See, that fits inside. These you can get in an Army surplus store.
Now you're going to tell us how to make this tent.
How to make the tent. I just happen to have right here an article, not from the 1961 Sports Field, but from the October 1978 Michigan Out of Doors. There's the dimensions for the tent, an article here that explains how to make it, some of the details, and that's something that you'll probably want to pick up if you're not a subscriber, and tells how to do it. Not much expense at all.
Michigan Out of Doors magazine.
Right. Now you can see here by looking at some of my stitchery, if we can get a shot on this, it isn't the most beautiful thing in the world, right?
Well, it does the job.
It does the job, that's right. And there's really something to be said for somebody who wants a do-it-yourself project. You can really feel good camping in a tent you've made yourself. We'll be right back with more Michigan Weekend and a special food smoking recipe right after these messages.